Okay, cool. Yeah, I hear you loud and clear as well. Perfect.
Sweet.
Are those Raycons? I don't know. Which Bluetooth headphones are those?
I think JBL. Yeah,
Oh,
JBL.
Jay.
They were the free gift for donating to NPR.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. That's a unique gift for a
Yeah.
donation. How have you been, man?
You know, things are going. Settled into the life that we now live pretty easily. Since I had been kind of home since December, I
Mm-hmm.
started on March like 16th, and so
Yeah.
that was like shelter in place time. And since the happy hour with Jackbox, literally nothing has changed.
I guess I'd predict that you would be doing better than your average person during quarantine. And I think my reasoning for that is you are good at occupying yourself in terms of doing things. I think so, more so than the average person.
Yeah, I could be pretty self-entertaining.
Yeah, like hobbies
The
and like just getting yourself into like doing things.
Yeah, I think we've done little things like a murder mystery once a month box. So
What does
we're
that
like,
mean?
so like every month we're sent a tiny box with clues and whatnot to solve a murder.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Little things. We'll see. There's one bigger thing, which is what the subject of today is.
Oh yes, that's what a great segue. So, what have you decided to talk about today, Michael?
Well, the reason that I needed, no, come on, come on, come on, hang out. You can do it. You can do it. It's 3D printing.
Oh, okay. First of all, I just want to say how jealous I am. You have a whole shop, basically. Oh, this is such a cool area.
There we go. So now I
What's
can. I
Ru- Rusa? What's the brand?
it is a Prusa.
Prusa.
Um,
By Joseph Prusa.
yeah, yeah. So the company is Prusa. This is pretty new to me, and so this has kind of been like the big passion of recent times. And so I figured that this would be a good, I was really excited about. Could kind of like share all the things I know and all that. Uh, so it's a kind of
I think
a
that
comp. Go ahead.
I think it's a really good topic to pick. Like, it's one of those things that I'm really interested in. You know, I like miniatures and small, like sort of like small objects that are handmade, and all of the channels that I watch on YouTube that do making can have done incredible things with 3D printing. So I'm really excited to see what you do with it.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited as well. So far, it's been a hit with my son. He's been thrilled.
To watch it print or like the prints that come out.
Everything so far. It's really crazy. Oh, by the way, I don't know if there's like an official start to this or if like this is the beginning.
Uh, I let it stuff. Like I always end up editing audio, but yeah, I'd say there's many ways we can go, right? Like based on how people pick topics, I can either say, how did you get started with it? So more like a origin story. How did you get interested in it? Or things you wish more people knew about this hobby, or things you've gotten to know about this. So pick any question and start.
Okay, okay. And I didn't tell you if this was going to be incredibly long before we started. So is
It's
there any
open
kind
ended.
of time frame? Okay. Okay. So, so I think this is definitely something where I could just kind of like go off, and I think that you should ask whatever questions you might have,
Perfect.
and I will just kind of spout about something I'm excited about. I figured that would be
That's
a good way of
exactly
going
what I
about
want.
today.
That's
Yeah,
exactly the spirit of what I want to do.
sweet, sweet. There were other things that were like topics of parenting or like other like more philosophical things, and I was like, I think excitement will do well here. Okay, so first things, I have been looking at what printer to buy for a long time now. It was actually like an anxiety-inducing thing for me to try and figure that out. A friend of mine, a good friend of mine, has he was gifted a 3D printer from a company called Creality, and they have like a $200 3D printer that's like one of the largest on the market for any kind of reasonable price. And like he's had great success with it. And I was like, I am so jealous. And then it finally got to be when like kind of feeling out the shelter in place. I was like, well, like I'm working now. We're gonna be here for a while. I should probably just go ahead and do this. Like get that shelter in place purchase out of the way. And so I went about trying to find it. I was really going to get the same one that he did, and then I kept on like squeaking by a newer model, like trying to figure out what the difference between all of these different models, and then industry do a good job of like helping people figure out what their first purchase should be, because it'll say things like, oh, there's an upgraded updated extruder element. The auto leveling uses a sub mesh field, but like that's what's new in this printer. And it's like, cool. I don't know what that means. And like people will tell you, like if you look into what it is, it's like, okay, cool. That is what it does. Some people say it's crap, some people say it's good. Do I want that? Do I need that? And since 3D printing is something that goes from like $200 to tens of thousands of dollars, it's like, well, like where on the spectrum do I need to be? So I was like looking into all these 3D printers and trying to learn about what was going on. I made a couple of spreadsheets, responded to some like Reddit subs of like, hey, these are what I see the differences in all of the different products that are out there for this one company are. And it looks like this is the best dollar per value per like unit of size or something like that. I was just trying to figure it out. And then all of that didn't matter because I didn't go with that company. At the end of the day, I decided that more and more I struggle to find time for little hobbies between like having a kid, having a newish job where I really don't want to get fired, and having another kid on the way where I know like time is limited.
Congratulations. I didn't know that.
Thank you. Yeah. So we are due in September and we're having
Oh,
another boy.
congratulations. That's so soon and so awesome.
Yeah. It's been kind of crazy. We found out back in January and then found out the sex just a little while ago. But like in shelter in place with all the scares and whatnot, Angadi's work has been crazy. She just had a coronavirus scare at work where one of her coworkers got it. And so like she'd only spent the entire day around her. So pregnancy in the time of pandemics is stressing. So this was
as a nurse, especially, or as like I guess, medical worker in general.
yeah. Luckily, she's not really seeing people on like the front line of things, but like their clinic is open, they see people and they see people. So anyway, like kind of reflecting on all of that, the time that I would have for doing like more, like a lot of tinkering, is probably limited. And so if I got something like this Chinese printer where there's a community, but like it's not super well supported, and it is more of just like getting by on the straps of your boots or something like that, like and kind of like figuring things out. A lot of people that will print an extra like 10 or 15 extra pieces to do upgrades of the machine in order to get it to a point where it can print well enough to do like other things they want to do. And finding that path forward with limited time would be difficult. So I decided to, instead of going with like, I was looking at a $200 machine that kind of crept up to closer to like $400, $500. And then I finally was like, well, fuck it. I'm going to get this one from Prusa, which is like kind of a competitor in that space, for like $800. $800 shipped with a 4 to 5 week lead time. So I've been waiting patiently for quite a while. The fun part about this is I was able to save $200 by getting one that wasn't pre-assembled, but came as a kit. So in this
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, like $800 to $1,000 is huge. And so what's kind of crazy is that every single part of this was like something that I built. So like from attaching motors to things, like all of the screws that are here, the belts, the tensioning of all the belts, like, you know, putting in the the LCD wiring. What is this? There's like
That looks fairly complicated, Michael.
so like there's all the sensors and whatnot. I should probably open it up and show you.
In
Maybe
terms
we'll
of
see.
hardness of assembly, how much harder is it than building a PC?
Uh, I would say that building a PC is definitely easier. To what degree, though, is I'd say like building this was like building 3 PCs.
Okay.
And that's mostly because like there was a lot like more cases of parts not fitting, of like having to shove things together, like trying to get like this piece, this rod that it's like the piece slides on into this hole when it doesn't quite fit, and there are tiny little barbs in there that prevents it, without actually damaging this 3D printed piece, which is very fragile, was like a stressful combination of things. Assembly for this took, I think, so I have some partial logs, but I think it took between 12 and 15 hours total.
Oh, wow.
So price per dollar or price per hour of my time was like not a very good exchange rate, but it was super worth it. It was in and of itself, it was like an adult Lego kit. And so like it was basically, I was being paid $200 for a super fun experience. This is the assembly instruction. This is the manual. So once you have it built, this is the manual. So like to compare the size of the assembly versus the manual, and we put these side by side, like that's how thick the assembly instructions are.
It's twice as thick, and it's on like 1.5 times the area.
Yeah. But I do want to show you from this instruction manual my favorite part. So in the pre-assembly instructions, I think I was just on the right page and missed it, is so in the introduction, step 10, reward yourself. Building the MK3S printer is a challenge unlike any other, and you should treat yourself for every milestone you reach. That is why a bag of Haribo bears is included. The biggest issue from previous... What?
It was included in the box?
Yep. The biggest issue from previous builds, which we had to address, was inadequate bear consumption. Many of you didn't have enough bears for all chapters. Some even ate them before they started. I'm glad to announce that after countless weeks of thorough scientific research, hundreds of eaten bears, we came to a solution. At the end of each chapter, you will be told a specific amount of bears to consume. Eating more or less bears than prescribed in the manual might lead to fatigue or nausea. Please consult a professional in the closest candy store. Hide the Haribo for now. From our experience, an unattended bag with sweets tends to suddenly disappear. We are still investigating the phenomena.
So, like, that's great.
Yeah, that was phenomenal. Like that was one of the reasons to go for this this company. It was like they have that kind of like tone about them. They're based
Seems like
out of
one
Prague.
dude.
Yeah,
right.
Well,
like one dude
now
just
now
put
it's
a company.
now it's huge.
Oh.
Like he's super obsessed with putting his name on stuff. He's a little bit narcissistic in that way, but like it's like they have full-time support. You can get on extensive websites and communities and whatnot. Lots of instructions, lots of iterations. They're based out of Prague, and they ship worldwide. Like they just seem like a pretty solid company. Like they have the right mentality. So it was one of the reasons to go for them.
Was the assembly beginner friendly? Like I know you have a fair bit of just mechanical expertise.
No. I think like if like I was challenged at several places. Like the challenge is oftentimes like having the intuition to know whether or not you should turn one more nut another quarter turn. And like if you can feel like the stresses in the material and know what you should and shouldn't be doing, like it's a lot of fun. But like you tighten down like here. Captions on? No. Which camera? So like there are these little bearings right here. And that's like what this thing travels on. And when you bolt that to the top piece here, they just say, don't go too hard or you will crush the bearing. And like that's all they say. And there are lots of those little things where you're like, wait a second, like how far is too far? Like is it too loose? And then kind of like flipping forward several pages and being like, if this is too loose, can I like go back and adjust this later, or is it going to be impossible?
Mm.
Um, so like figuring all that is why it takes so long. I think they say you should be able to assemble it in less than a full working day. So like
Mm.
8 hours, but like I think I was 12 to 15 because I had to do several things twice and like wow, like how do I not break this? Um, they I broke nothing. I did
Good.
several things wrong, and as far as the assembly like problems that you could get, when I turned it on and hit go for the first time, everything just worked.
Hmm.
I'm still having some problems, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but like overall, like it turned on, it didn't smoke, it didn't catch fire, it's not making atrocious noises because things are too tight. Um, so it kind of just worked, which I was like, yes, that was like rewarding before I had even printed anything. Um, but like it took a lot of focus. I took this last Friday off and
Mm.
did like the last 3 or 4 chapters just like in one go. And I was like, oh sweet, I'm gonna like get this done by midday and then be 3D printing all evening. And then like at like 6 o'clock on the dot, like I had just finished. And I was like, oh my god, that was so much. But I mean, it worked. It worked. Um,
If you had gone for the $200 option, would it be like this times 10?
no, that comes in 3 pieces. You pull it out of the box. You do like 2 bolts here, 2 bolts here. Grab the next piece, 2 bolts here, 2 bolts there. You're done. But once you do that, like the overall quality of your builds and whatnot might not be as good, and you might have a lot more tuning. Like I was super careful in my, and they have like more variants per part kind of thing. So you might get an absolute shit machine and you wouldn't know. When they sent this, like they had, oh, I can show you these. This would be fun. So included in this thing was like this kind of a receipt looking thing where they show all the tests that were done,
Mm.
and then
Mm-hmm.
the graphs that show the heating profiles of the
Oh,
heating elements. So like the tests are very clear. Like they're doing things according to like specific data. Whereas I think the Chinese company will just be like, well, we just bought the parts and like we'll put them in a box and then off they go. And so like you
I
might
see.
have to
I see.
deal with a lot more stuff. It's kind of me. It's like 50% conjecture, but like it's also isn't there like a well-known phrase like uh, something that means like put money where it matters or like put money in the right areas or something like that. Do you know? Is
Put your money where your put your money where your mouth is.
maybe it's not a phrase so much as it was a mentality I remember from planning a wedding, which was like there's a lot of stupid shit and like money goes pretty quick in planning a big wedding because like it's an industry of people spending way too much money. Um, but like so everyone's trying to like budget what they need to and keep prices down because everything's so expensive for weddings. But if there is something that you really care about, make sure that you put the money into that spot. Like
Oh, I see what you mean.
so like if you care about your wedding pictures because like you want to be able to get a dying family member like the best possible pictures, then like you need to have a good photographer.
Mm.
Don't let it. Like if it really matters to you, like make sure that's a success by putting adequate money. And it's just kind of the recognition that you always like if it's important to you, like make it happen. Like you're gonna get the value out if you put the money there. And that's kind of something that I didn't appreciate really before then. Like it's always been like keep it cheap, like figure it out. You're doing what you can on whatever the budget you've set is, and then you just kind of accept like whatever the thing is that's like out of necessity. And it put more so emphasis on the fact that you couldn't put the money. But for a
Mm.
wedding, like everything's kind of in flux and
Right.
like it doesn't matter if like you spend a little bit more here or there because it's all part of like some giant package. It's kind of an interesting thing. Tell about this, and it seems so far to have panned out.
No, that makes a
Um,
lot of sense. In even as general advice, like if you have a limited amount of resources and you want to really invest heavily in two or three most important aspects as opposed to diluting it again, like across all the dimensions.
Yeah. And I saw that pop up recently as well, in terms of investing in yourself. And it
Mm,
was like, let's say that you wanted to learn a new skill set or something. Like I can use like a something related to tech because it's easy. Like let's say that you were a Java programmer and you wanted to learn Python or something, or vice versa. Like invest in paying money for a class up front. Set
yeah,
the best possible foundation, and then
yeah,
like it's investing. It there's so much gain, so much quickly. So it's a large gain up front at the very beginning that it pays for itself later on. But it's kind of like counter to the like, look, like you don't need to do this. Like you can learn it on your own. Like, and if you know that's true, like you know that you'll be able to learn a language if you just put your mind to it. Why should you pay for that up front? And like, what is the net gain that you get? Like, and it's really just like a return on investment and how you think about that. Uh, Recently, I've been thinking about that kind of differently.
I think I would add a qualifying statement to that, which is you should be able to trust yourself to actually follow through with the plan. Because one thing I've seen with people who, and this doesn't apply to you actually, it's for people who want to just feel better, or feel like they're doing something. And paying, the more money you pay, the more it feels like you're doing that thing. Like my brother
Yeah,
does this all the time. Like way back when he wanted to learn the guitar, so he bought a really nice guitar, never played it. He bought nice weights, never did any workouts. Like that kind of just
yeah,
like buying it made him feel awesome. And I think my sort of like in the middle ground kind of wisdom is take a week or two and try to just engage with the hobby, even if it's shitty tools. And if it really resonates, like then invest in a couple of really good things. But just buying something nice is not going to guarantee that you're going to be good at this hobby.
yeah. There's like a crossover point
Hmm.
where investing without investing fully becomes counterproductive as compared to if you had invested earlier.
Yeah.
Not necessarily with money. It could be time. It could be
Mhm.
like searching for the right teacher or something. But yeah, it's this crossover like idea and trying to recognize where you are for each one of those and whether or not like it makes sense for a certain situation.
Like, for
But
example, I would say you upfront invested an appropriate amount of time into making all of these decisions and growing that hobby way before you ever bought a 3D printer or assembled it.
yeah,
So that signals to your own brain that if I buy it, I've already invested like 100+ hours into this hobby without owning anything. I'm pretty sure I'll continue to stick with it.
perhaps. I was also getting at one point pretty close to buying a multi-$1,000 Dremel 3D printer. And it was even more so along the lines of like out of the box, it'll just work. Like it'll be like no tuning, no anything. They have proprietary software for everything. They're backed by a
Mm,
multi-million-dollar company and not
mm.
like some dude kind of thing. Uh, and it's just like what side of the things are you on? Like that maybe I'd be on the side of like let me just throw money at something I want to do so I can feel better about it. But maybe it really is like if I struggle with this for 6 months and then like the passion wanes, would it have been better just to
True.
put like what would the end state be? And like a lot of times you can only do this once, so you'll never actually
Mm.
know like which one is the better choice.
That is true. You can't do a controlled experiment.
Yeah.
Would you?
Okay.
But okay, we have one data point at least. Would you
Yeah.
say, since you've had this, tell me how many prints have you done, and is the passion waning? Is it going up? Like, how are you actually enjoying the hobby?
So I've had it built since Friday.
Mm.
Uh, so far, like I can say, here are a bunch of quote unquote prints. These are all the bottoms of boats
I can tell.
before they have been snapped off because they weren't sticking to the bed, and I
Uh,
ended up with a mangled piece of crazy. And so, with that note, actually, I am going to start something. Oh, it might be too loud,
oh,
actually. I was going to start
I
something now, but I'm worried that it'll be loud.
I thought you needed a computer to use it.
Oh, so this just has an SD card.
Oh,
So like it came with some files, and then I added some more. I Yeah, and then also has hookups for like hooking up a Raspberry Pi so you can do it remotely and whatnot. What I'll do
Nice.
is I am going to print a, what do you think? So I can either print this,
Rocket.
okay. So now the bed is heating. That's at 25 degrees out of 215 for the like the temperature inside the thing that melts the plastic. And
Okay.
then the sheet where stuff goes down is also heated, and that's at 25 degrees out of 60.
Oh, like a baking tray that's
Yeah,
preheated and as well as the oven.
yeah.
Interesting.
So like when you take the hot plastic out of there and it dumps it onto here, you need this to be close enough in the temperature so that you don't get like an instant cooling effect on the
Ah,
material, which
got
will
it.
cause it to like basically it'll cause it to not stick.
Right.
Um,
Do you need to do a bed? Like I've seen some 3D printing videos where even if you're printing a part, you need to have a flat base at the bottom of it, which you then take off.
yeah. So there are different techniques there. There's the don't do that. There is just make a halo around the object so that like you kind of warm up right where you're going to go before it gets there. And then there's you make like a bed or a rim or something like that. And the first couple of things that I saw were people saying like, oh, you don't need to do that rim or you don't need to do like a bed around it. It's not useful. I've had fine results without it. But my big problem is that nothing is sticking on this sheet. And so
Okay.
I have found that brim to be very useful so far. Um, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't
Do you
have
think
enough.
your bed, you think your bed is not heating up appropriately?
That's one of my thoughts. Like it's clear that this is saying 60 out of 60, so
Mm.
that like the actual bed part is getting that hot. I wonder if like there's some kind of like heat transfer problem where it's like at the surface here it's not actually 60, but it is underneath it.
Oh,
Um, what's funny is that these are it's about to start. 217 of 215, 61. Ready?
oh, this is so exciting. It's so different from a regular printer. It has to like gear up to do something. Oh,
That's going to do a calibration. So this printer will go through each of the like 9 different positions and create an auto leveled, or every time it goes through and it measures what the level of the board is. So
okay.
it knows exactly what height and whatnot it needs to be at.
And it's reading some markings from the bed.
What the hell is that?
Oh, it's printing.
Yeah, there's a piece of shit in there though. Fuck away from there.
Oh, what?
Okay, that's done. Yeah, now it's printing. Give me this shot. Let me. There we go. So you see that brass piece with the tip?
I do.
That's the thing that's actually that has the filament coming out of it. The white eraser looking thing is the sensor to tell how close you are to the bed. The bed
Uh,
has magnets in placed in it, and I think it uses the magnetic field to tell how far away it is.
okay. What kind of plastic is that?
The stuff.
Hmm.
This is PLA, which is plastic.
Like, is
uh,
it food safe? Could you make like utensils out of it?
let's see. So these are like some of the materials it can use. PLA,
Oh,
PET, ABS, ASA, HIPS, PP, Flex. Those are like a bunch of different materials. If I,
does it come with a lot of plastic or do you need to buy it?
oh, I'm discovering that actually. It comes with exactly one type, and it's this gray PLA. Um,
Great.
the different types. Let's see. I wish I could like give a very quick overview of those. Are like somewhat daunting. That was one of the
Okay.
things for like getting started. Is just like what the hell. Um, oh, we can check in on this. By the way, how's the volume of this?
The volume is fine actually. Like I hear it's weird because the volume in any case is like a little bit compressed. I think the signal isn't too great, so it's like background noise, weird watery sounds. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm actually dialing down this number here. I just dialed it down to 62, 60. So that's
Oh,
the like the relative speed of the print.
oh,
So it just started printing the fins,
yep, I see that.
and not only will I want to slow it down so that I get better adhesion of the first couple of layers,
Mm-hmm.
but it'll also make it quieter.
How involved is the print? Like, can you just hit print and walk away?
Yeah, yeah. For me, it's still fun to sit here and watch it. Um,
Okay.
but because I've had a lot of issues with stuff sticking, um, like there's a chance that like this right now will just kind of like break free of the bed and it'll start getting dragged around by the extruder.
Oh,
And so instead of printing exactly where it thinks it is, it's printing in midair on top of nothing. And so you just get like stringy, like I'm sure you've seen like the stringy spaghetti type prints. Have you ever seen that?
I've seen failed prints like that.
Yeah. So like this instead of
Yeah,
I think I had most of them separated. Like this is one of the things. Where's the camera? Yeah.
yeah,
Like
I
it was
see what
printing
happened
and then
there.
it just broke off and went crazy.
Why are you printing boats, Michael?
Uh, so that is a great question. I'm not naval by any means.
Yeah.
Uh, so there is a standard file, a standard text called Benchy.
Okay.
Uh, 3D Benchy by like I don't know some designer or something. But it's basically this really cute looking boat. It's almost like a cartoonish looking boat, and it has a bunch of elements that are really hard. So like you can't really like print right angles because you would have nothing for that first layer to get supported on. If you tried to print all the way out here, it would just fall down.
Mm-hmm.
So like the boat has like some sharp angles where it's kind of like right on the edge of what you might be able to get an overhang to look like.
I see.
It has like very gentle slopes. So like how smooth can your printer make a slope? And it's basically a stress test for a bunch of different things that are hard for printers to do.
Okay.
If it works out, then like you get to see like what areas are good, what areas are bad, where are the problems. So it's like a rite of passage to print out Benchy. I have
I
yet
see.
to get a full Benchy. So far, I have two 80% Benchies. So I
And
was I was gonna go ahead.
what is your setup struggling with? What's the last 20%?
Uh, so fundamentally it's the problem where things are coming off of the bed when they shouldn't be.
Okay.
One of the reasons that I got really excited about this printer is that a lot of people apparently have the problem that stuff sticks too well to the beds of 3D printers, and so like you have to like scrape stuff with like
Oh,
a razor blade or something to try and get it separated. And this has a magnetic plate sitting on top of a heat bed. So I
mm,
can just like it's flexible, so I can literally just like peel this back a little bit from the magnet, and it just
okay.
like bends it and pops it. And it's supposed to be like a great way of being able to get stuff off.
Gotcha.
Unfortunately, for some reason, it's too easy to get off. Uh, so the problem might be like uh, the heat bed isn't the high enough temperature. The very first layer it puts down isn't getting squished down hard enough. The print bed wasn't clean, so like I just picked myself up a giant bottle of 99% isopropyl alcohol, and I've been like cleaning like mad before prints.
Mm,
I have been like experimenting with a bunch of settings, like how low down does it go before it touches the first layer.
mm,
Once it gets going, it goes up by like the exact same distance every layer, and like it knows exactly what it
mm.
should be doing. But that first layer can be more or less squished when you start it.
I see.
Kind of like imagine you were to put a bunch of toothpaste on a table. Like you could
Hmm.
do it where the toothpaste is like not even touching the table and you drag it along. So it would
Yeah,
just be like it could be like touching it lightly. It
yeah,
could be like squishing it down.
that's right.
Uh, and it's like those are all the variables for like that first layer height. So like I've been changing those and running with them and seeing what they can do. Uh, so
So
far, I think like I've seen improvements, but I haven't figured it out totally yet. Some people will put like it came with a glue stick. You can actually take a glue stick, use a glue stick, and like temporary glue it, and then clean it off with the isopropyl. Some people swear by hairspray instead of a glue stick.
hmm. So it sounds like you're always gonna need to tinker with it, or is it that once you find the perfect setup, you can print for like a few months at ease?
I think that the latter is more so the case. Eventually, wear and tear will get to me, and I'll have to start replacing parts and taking things apart. I'm sure, but this level of tinkering isn't bad. Like, I don't mind like being like, oh man, like this isn't sticking. Why isn't this sticking? Like, I thought about it a little bit. I tried squishing it down more. That seemed to help. I haven't tried the glue stick yet. That'll probably help. Like, these are kind of like easier things to be thinking about from a tinkering point of view, um, and that I don't mind. What I would mind would be, I'm gonna go back. Um, one of the first potential problems I had. So right in there is a motor that turns and is gripping the filament as it comes down and
Mm-hmm.
forcing it into that rigid uh, heater that
Mm-hmm.
softens it so that when it gets down to that the tip at the very bottom, it can be squished out.
Mm-hmm.
Like after I was printing, if I had to take this entire assembly apart because I needed to adjust that teeth gear in there,
Mm-hmm.
which is connected to that motor, like that would be a pain in the ass. And I wouldn't be tweaking and tuning while getting to see and like trying new 3D prints. I'd just
Mm.
have a disassembled machine working on trying to figure it out. Then I'd have to reassemble it and then give it one test shot. And that's
Gotcha.
much less fun. And I think that's more of what I would have to be doing if it was the Chinese machine, or at least
Oh,
that's
I
what my
see.
fear would be. It's like two different kinds of annoying debugging.
I
Um,
see what you mean. This is more so the you can tinker with variables and parameters and quickly get out a bunch of prints as opposed to like, yeah, disassembling the thing each time.
yeah, yeah,
How
right.
big can it print? How tall is that rocket gonna get?
I think this machine can do like 8 centimeters by 8 centimeters by 8 centimeters, and the other one that I was looking at was like 12 centimeters by 12 centimeters by 14 centimeters or something. So like not that much bigger, but like like, like getting to be kind of big.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's I was excited about building really big stuff. But I think now that I'm in it for like a couple of days, I know that it takes so long to print stuff that building something that was massive, I'm like, I don't really know if I want to have this on for like 4 days straight. And
How long does something like the rocket take?
the rocket I added in with a zero point 0.3 millimeter layer height. This is the
Mm.
file name, which is like a very rough layer height, so it's not very smooth in the finish. So it will only take like 50 minutes. Yeah, we're printing that thing. The circle here is just to hold and like give support for those first pieces of the fins.
Oh, that's just holding the fins in.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was like the what are those called? The things that like kind of fly off when you're in the air.
Oh, like the solid rocket boosters.
Not even those. No, no, no. It's like it's on the cone of the rocket, and it fairings.
Ah, yeah, yeah. That is not the maximum or the minimum diameter of the rocket, or the outer diameter of the rocket. That is
Uh,
the maximum diameter of the lower fins.
oh, I see. So basically, because the rims are those sharp edges, they need some support to stand.
Yeah.
Michael, I have a question which I'm only asking because I've heard this about 3D printers before. How much of itself can this printer print?
Good question. I was very curious of that as well. So there is this frame there's like a big square piece here that
Uh-huh.
is solid machined metal.
Okay.
There are aluminum T-slot extrusions on the front and on the back that create like kind of like the main support away from this frame.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big thick piece of metal, and there's one
Mm.
on the back as well. Those are the metal, like the metal support frame. Like that's
Okay.
what makes it rigid. That's what you adjust in the very beginning to get it extremely square, with like no rocking, no tilt. It's all very tightly machined. It's crucial
Mm.
to have that. After those things, like that's 3D printed, that's 3D printed, the top of it's 3D printed, that's 3D printed. On the extruder itself, like this is a motor, that's 3D printed, that's 3D printed, that's 3D printed.
Oh, wow.
Out, that's hot. That's 3D printed, that's 3D printed. A fan is screwed into the 3D printed thing there and the 3D printed thing here. Um, on like this thing, this is 3D printed,
Mm.
that's 3D printed, that's 3D printed.
But
Over here,
are they 3D printed with like the thousands of dollar machine, or this could 3D print itself?
I think that Prusa is using Prusa 3D printers, and they don't have like this is their upper end machine,
Okay.
so they might be using these. That's 3D printed. That's 3D printed. What is over here? Oh, that thing is metal. So
You
like
can
a lot
even
of that.
tell from the like the plastic surface that it looks 3D printed. It's not molded.
Yeah, that's right. You can like I don't know if you can see in there. You can see the diagonal lines
I
inside the
can.
test feature.
I can.
Yeah, kind of crazy.
Have you I'm gonna completely switch gears. Have you started following any oh that's cool. What is that?
So
This
that's
is
the
what
belt.
okay.
So like I like this view. So this is the motor that's turning it that direction.
Hmm.
So that's the motor here, and then that has a spindle that has teeth that like belt is gripping. So when
Mm-hmm.
that spins, that turns the belt, and the belt goes through there. Backside is kind of neat. You can see that? Not really. Inside. Lighting's kind of bad. Yeah. Okay, you said you were switching gears.
Oh, yeah, I completely blanked on that thought. I'm so fascinated by the spinning motor. What was I gonna ask you? I think it was gonna be about um like printing useful things at home, like actually printing stuff. Like what are you gonna be printing next? Like right now you're doing testing and whatnot, but what are you gonna be using it for?
uh, well, that's a good question. I don't necessarily have a great answer for it. There have been times where I thought having a 3D printer would be useful, but it's a burning use case.
Okay.
A lot of it is like getting it, knowing that it would be fun. Like when there are things that come up, I will know I will definitely use it.
Uh-huh.
A lot of those things are like when I would probably just fashion something out of a piece of wood and it would be kind of crude. Now I can do it all precise. But like some of the use cases, for example, would be digging through like my short pockets right now to get something to show you.
Mm.
Um, so like, let's see.
Is this something you 3D printed?
Yeah. I'm looking for something. So I want to show you my son's stuffed dog.
Okay. Oh, that's so cute and so big. I love it. Oh, wait, you scanned it? Did you model it?
I modeled it.
How?
Uh, that was another thing. I had to learn how to do that.
So you're telling me that to pick up 3D printing, I need to pick up Blender?
There's a website called Tinkercad by Autodesk, and it's free, and it offers like pretty simplistic like interfaces, basically manipulations of basic geometry.
Okay.
like geometric features with like some kind of cool, nifty features thrown in. But like I did this with that and just kind of like stuck to it. But like,
But like you put in a picture and it converted it to a model, or you did that from scratch?
no, this is made out of spheres and tubes and like that's about it.
That's really
Like,
well done, man.
uh, like, like imagine taking a something like this and then
Hmm.
putting the next one right next to it and another one right next to it and another right next to it so that they're overlapping. And now you have something that's a little bit bumpy and like has
Right.
an organic texture. And then that kind of texture is what made. Let's see if this works. The front camera is better. So like you see it's
Oh,
both,
I see it.
and those
Oh,
are just
when you zoom in, it almost looks like Minecraft, like a hill.
yeah. So this is that really like draft quality print,
Mm.
and it looks very like topological.
Hmm.
And this is a test one, and I don't know where Isaac put his actual one, but I made this one last night, and then Isaac and I made a high quality one this morning.
I've also seen some folks take their prints and dip them in acetone to make it smooth. Is that a
Mm.
thing?
That is so with the PLA that doesn't work.
Okay.
PLA is not something that dissolves in acetone. Um, PLA, I'm not even gonna say what it is. I'm so bad with chemical names.
Difficult to post process, I suppose. That's the disadvantage.
Yeah, that's basically what they're talking about is like the acetone stuff. Um, the ABS plastic, which is also in here, is like the previous classic 3D printing material,
Mm-hmm.
ABS, and then can be smoothed with acetone vapors.
Mm.
So you would just basically like build a little tent and then put a cup of acetone and let it melt it very lightly.
Mm-hmm.
And that works pretty well if you can get like a very shiny gloss like thing and it can smooth out some of the edges.
Mm-hmm.
When you print really high quality prints, like this is the boat,
Mm-hmm.
and like you can not really even see the edges.
Oh, that's so fine.
Yeah, off camera you can still kind of see it, but when you're in like a higher quality mode, I think this is 150 uh, 150 micrometer layer height, and you can barely see it on camera. And I think this goes down to 100. So like if you can even finer, but that it takes so long. This is a rocket, and I can get it to focus.
Does it feel rough still?
It feels like it's ridged.
Mm.
What would be the closest equivalent?
Oh, the
Yeah.
auto zoom. Oh, okay, there we go. What are the layers like every half a centimeter apart?
Unclear. That might be something like uh, you can tell it as it goes around, and so that might be like on the inside when it's making a semi-filled crisscross pattern that kind of
Mm-hmm.
rotates. That when that crisscross pattern hits the outside, it deforms it a little bit.
Oh, I see.
Uh, but I'm not entirely sure yet. But yeah, there are like little features to this. Like you see, there's slight differences in what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's the fin that broke at the beginning. Oh, I just heard something crack.
Oh,
Something crack? Maybe not. Maybe we're okay. Oh, I forgot that I have it. Oh, hey, we can get a much better view now than prior.
it's really cool to see it do what it's doing right now. Like so precise.
Oh, it's bridging the gap between them.
Oh man, I could watch this thing go for hours. Michael, is it just a really expensive screensaver?
I have been sitting in front of this a lot more than I thought it would be. It is a lot of fun to watch it. Oh, now
Oh,
that we're actually that high, I can turn this back up.
oh, all the way.
I forgot that I was
Oh,
only going to have that.
the question came back to me. The question just came back to
Oh
me.
yeah.
I was gonna ask you. I've seen a bunch of really cool YouTube videos of people who do 3D printing. Are you following any people? Are you gonna be doing prints that people have done? Like, do you follow makers?
I don't follow specific makers in the space right now. It's been everything is just like my own thing.
Okay.
I'm very isolated from everybody else. Um, Zero fandom, zero like people I would be like, oh yeah, you got to check out these prints. Uh, I've watched like a couple of random videos on more so like assembly kind of stuff. But I don't really have any buddies yet.
How are you planning to get into the scene, like the community, or are you?
Uh, um, I don't really think that I'm going to that much. The closest I would be for like repair kind of stuff.
Hmm.
I think because I will like I'm not looking for like inspiration. How do you get really cool, like for example, like weapons and figurines that get the support they need to be able to uh, like be like at weird angles or something like that, or like how would you design it so that you can have removable portions that support those things, or like how do you get really clean internal gears and stuff because I'm doing like a functional thing. Like for me, a lot of the utility is just being able to make like an exactly like 5.3 millimeter object this way, and down with a little notch on each side so that I can put this on top of like some object that broke to fix like an appliance or something. Um, so to a certain extent, it's like a CNC mill that I might use, but instead of out of metal, out of plastic, and faster and cheaper.
Do you see
So there's
yourself
not a
printing more toys out of it for Isaac?
yeah, that's also an interesting question because I caught myself yesterday like uh, I printed that dog or no this morning it was I printed the dog and then he's like let's print 10 of them and I was like we totally can. I'm like no like I can buy 10 of those dogs too but I don't like so it was kind of catching myself and being like whoa what's going on here, how is this similar, like should we be going down that road, is that me just getting really excited and having a lot of fun, or is it like yes, you can have toys whenever you want. All you have to do is print them, which sounds like
Right.
not an okay thing to be doing. So this morning it was kind of like a like oh man, like what do we do? How do you end this? So I've been kind of figuring it out. But the short answer is yes.
I mean, I can't blame you because honestly, that's what I would be doing. So,
The very first successful print I had was a whistle for Isaac.
and it works and everything.
Yep, it's not.
That has made a surprising amount of headway, right? In the time just that we've been chatting.
Yeah, now that it's up to 100% speed, it's only half hour left. I totally
Honestly,
forgot to speed that up.
I think if I bought something like that, I'd be like putting dioramas together, like like I would be printing small like can it actually that's a good question. Can it print like trees? Like stuff like that?
Uh, kind of. Like you could do something that was semi hollow and like maybe had like some branches and whatnot. You would be hard pressed to get like individual leaves. But I think the biggest challenge is that you would have to design that, and that kind of
Mm.
intricacy would be really hard. If somebody had that treatment model, that would be awesome. You could just like grab it and go. Um, but yeah, let's also show you maybe like we could do a quick search for um, on
This is what
Thingiverse.
like Thingiverse. This is like a free place.
Yeah. Uh, tree.
Oh
So like
wow.
there's a tree, like a little Christmas tree kind of thing. Oh, there you go. That's a ticket. Look at that thing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
I think one of the coolest things that I've seen in terms of a 3D printing project. Oh, those look really cool too. I think was somebody 3D printed their own personal version of Settlers of Catan, where they made it an actual topographical map,
Nice.
and like painted it too. Let me see if I can actually send you the video.
So like these are the rockets. Or that's the rocket that we're printing, and the point is that
Mhm.
it slips onto a compressed air can and you can shoot it.
I see. So it's like actually, it's one of those science experiment thingies.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, here it is.
The other things that I've printed.
Where's the? Oh yeah, here we go. All right, I'm gonna send you this video.
Got it.
Um, I know recently people have been printing a lot of PPE, like personal protection
Yeah.
equipment. Oh
What's
wow.
that? So like a center finder for wood. Like this would have been useful on several occasions. So printing a bunch of those in different sizes.
Oh man. Okay, I see what you mean. Like small specialty tool. Actually, I've seen enough machining videos to know that you need to machine tools to even machine the machines themselves.
Yeah.
What is one? Oh, I need that. Oh my god, I need that so bad.
So yeah. Little random things.
Okay, that's already sold. I'm already sold.
Yeah. Lots of tools to make tools to make tools. That's that thing.
Oh, that's the rocket,
Yeah.
Baby Yoda.
Yep. Might try
What
that. Let's see.
can you just use acrylic paint with PLA?
I haven't gotten there yet. I think so. I think I would probably, because they're like are still visible layers, I would probably hit it with like a thick, really tough primer and be like, whatever.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know yet.
Okay. So I guess so far the story has very much been like the start of your journey with 3D printing.
Yeah.
But you still sound pretty unsure on where do you want to take it.
Uh, I look at it as this is a tool for solving household things,
Hmm.
um, and those those things come up fairly frequently. Like uh, from I really wish I had. Uh, I bet I could walk around the house and find things. Um, like I want to be able to keep this console table slightly farther away from the wall because of a overhang to 3D print that part
Um,
so that it's like the exact size on the top and the bottom. Um, uh, what else? Oh, I remember wanting to adjust how the plate holder sits on the wall because like it's got a really weird anchor thing. Like you can see that one. You there?
yeah.
Yeah. So like that one sits pretty flush against the wall, but for some reason that one can't. And I was like, oh, this is probably a 3D printer. I can fix that. Um, oh, uh, these are the vent thingies, and like if you look, that's a thick piece of metal that's really sturdy. That's
Hmm.
basically not child-proofing anything. I wanted to remove one of those and make one that was plastic that I could have kind of bent under there that I could turn with like a screwdriver or something.
Oh
Um,
wow.
what else? Um, uh,
I guess like door stops and stuff like that, of
oh,
course, like knobs and such.
yeah,
Oh, you have a Nest. That's so cool.
yeah. Uh, what else? Recently got Isaac a full size kid bed. Since we're having
Hmm.
another baby, we needed to steal a crib back. And now like we have this nightstand and it's like pretty close to this door. And so like I was like, oh man, like how would we do a door stopper on that? Like we can't. Well, what if? And I was like, oh, I could 3D print like a little thing either from here to here, and even better would be having something that would be 3D printed so that it goes between the leg of the bed and the leg of the nightstand that
Oh yes.
ensures the nightstand doesn't slide because one of the things he likes to do is like push this into like at a weird angle.
Oh man, that makes. In fact, you know what you could do? You could take some of those little circular pad things you put on the bottom of furniture legs so they don't scrape, and also put that on both sides, so like the door
Yeah,
doesn't even scrape on it.
yeah. Uh, what else? I feel like there's probably a shit ton
Are
of
you
other.
walking around the house generally all the time these days, just thinking about what could be 3D printed?
Oh, these are all things that I've thought previously. And none of these things were specifically the thing that would like make me want to get the 3D printer. They're
Mhm.
just things that like I've thought about in the past as being what I would want to do with one if I had one. Like we have a Nest doorbell as well,
Mm.
and like I'm like, man, I really wish I could have like angled that a little bit because we get a whole bunch of motion detection from the sidewalk. And if we had just a little bit of angle to it, that would be great. But I couldn't do it. With a 3D printer, that would have been easy. Uh, right now, we're done with the fins, so the tube part should go pretty quick.
Yeah, this part is going to go much, much faster.
Oh, and also, you see right there, that's a camera.
Uh
That camera I will turn on so that I can watch the 3D print while sitting on the
huh. What is that? Is this just a regular webcam?
couch. Yeah, it was something that Jay Retz, when he and I were talking about home automation stuff one time, he recommended this. The brand is Waze,
Okay.
WYZE. It's
Okay.
a $25 webcam and has full uh, online access, like unlimited clip recordings in S3. So like if you wanted to, you could just like click save for whatever you wanted. It has local SD card storage.
Hmm.
So it's pretty
Oh man,
sweet
these
deal for
bulbs are
25
so
bucks.
much cheaper than the Philips ones.
Yeah.
Oh, what? I should get these.
So I got one of those just like when I saw it. I was like, I don't really know why I need it, but I know I'm going to need it, and the price point is right. I got it in December and put it in my Christmas tree,
Okay.
and nobody noticed that I was recording the house. Yeah,
That's a little big brothery.
yeah.
So are you gonna
Uh,
go full home automation now?
I started to look into that in December, and like I got a new Raspberry Pi, and I got oh shit, someone's about to die. You still there?
I Yeah, yeah.
1% left.
Oh, you out of battery?
I have 1% left on my phone. Um, so, oh, I can present the screen on my phone. That would have been a sweet version of that. Uh, sorry, what did you ask? Oh, yeah, I was looking into home automation stuff, and I also felt that was kind of like, it was really hard to get into as far as like what is useful for home automation stuff, um, because most of it seems really useless. Like turning on lights off and on, like I don't care about. Like I can't, like none of my windows can open themselves, so I can cool off the house before I get home or anything. A lot of the like, I think it was Samsung, I think, like they have a bunch of sensors, like moisture sensors, and it's like
Mm.
like, oh, you can put it under your sinks just in case like the pipe bursts. And I'm like, oh,
It's
sweet. I would totally buy like $100 worth of sensors and put them in bathrooms and then change the batteries every once in a while. And the off chance that one, like, no, it's useless.
no.
Like, oh, put reed switches on the cabinets under the sink, and like you'll know if your kids get into the chemicals. And it's like, no,
It's
like that's just stupid.
they're using fear to sell.
Yeah. So I think what I was getting excited about was some smart outlets,
Hmm.
and I might have told you about this. I bought some from a brand called Tasmodo and reflashed the firmware so that I could have an open source smart outlet firmware on them that operated on local network only instead of
Oh, yeah,
this
right.
like Chinese companies like over the internet thing. I
Uh-huh.
was like, I'm not going to invite this Chinese company into the house. Uh,
Yeah.
and like I that was fun because you had to like solder pins onto a smart outlet that you had to like. It was basically doing soldering on things that are going to carry mains line voltage.
Oh my
So it was a
God.
little bit nervous, but it worked out. None of them have broken. But that was fun because I got to make those control my Christmas lights.
Hmm.
um, and I already have one of those like timers that just like you can program
Okay.
to turn on and off in like 15 minutes. And I've been using that for like a decade. And it was $5.
Okay.
But this I can control from my phone. And
Oh.
so over that period of time, uh, we would drive home, and Isaac would say, "Christmas lights," or no, we have a like a Christmas squirrel, one of those like light up decorative like kind of things.
Okay.
Isaac loves it, but he would ask the squirrel to turn on the lights, and from the car I would turn them on, and he'd get so excited.
So basically, I think for all of these different hobbies, home automation or 3D printing, you have the useful aspect to how you justify it to yourself as an adult. And then you have the fun aspect to it. What can I do for Isaac?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That sounds so much fun, Michael. That's such a good, it's even an educational activity, right? Like if he's getting excited and stuff for stuff like this, like he would be excited about engineering and science in general.
Yeah. Uh, we had sat for uh, 45 minutes to watch the rocket be built. No, I think it was we watched the entirety of the whistle, and I think we watched the entirety of the 3D printed dog.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I would watch that by myself.
Hey, Isaac, can you go grab the boats from the bathroom for me? Because I want to show bathrooms. No. No? Yeah. Um, what else?
Is your
Kind
phone,
of.
should we switch to something before you die or something?
Oh, I ran and grabbed the charger. I went silent for like 10 seconds. That was me running to get my charger.
Ah, okay, okay, okay.
I think my phone might be getting overheated, and so it's getting kind of like it's still at 1%, but it's stable at 1%.
Okay.
We'll see.
It's doing the
Um,
thing of like taking the electricity in from the outlet and like shoving it to the output as fast as possible.
yeah. So like you had asked a couple of questions that I think we're kind of dancing around. Like what are my future plans with the printer?
Yeah.
And some of that was like, okay, well, what do I want to use it for and whatnot. And so like that list is not like really set in stone. Like I do have a list of things to print on the fridge, but they're things like cement mixer cookie cutter, or like some characters from like the shows you like, things like that.
Still
But the ones
toys.
that are going, yeah, some of them are like useful like chopstick assistant devices, things that hold the chopstick at the end so that you can like teach him to use
Huh?
chopsticks.
I didn't know that was a thing. I would have loved to use something like that back when I learned.
Yeah, like I think the go-to classic is like you take the wrapper that disposable chopsticks come in, you roll that up into a small cylinder, you put the cylinder between the chopsticks, and then you wrap a rubber band around that in like a figure eight, and now they're squished at the back, and they kind of open at the end, and then you
Uh,
can squeeze them.
I see. I see. So you
So
can
it's
practice
that,
the grab as opposed to the grip.
yeah, yeah. So like low hand strength for kids and whatnot. It's just easier to like
Right.
start them doing that fine motor skills. But like that or like cookie cutters or like I thought about like pancake molds, but I'm not quite sure that's the right thing to do. But little things where like yeah, and he's still super into it, and so like it is kind of like a bonding like building kind of thing. That's fun. Um, if I can test with other materials, which I would like to try eventually, but this material, the PLA, is now super popular because it doesn't emit fumes while you're making it.
Okay.
And so if I want to move to something else like PET, which is the same plastic that's used in Legos, then I have to have like a like fume hood or like I have to do that while like they're out or do it in
Okay.
the garage, like whatever. But then if there's a draft, that can cool down the machine, which can make printing problematic.
Okay.
Um, so there are like other things to be trying, um, but it's still like not quite clear exactly what it's going to look like.
How do you mix mediums? Like, for example, if you wanted to make something where you want some metal bits, some plastic bits, like, can you design all of that in CAD and then print the plastic bits and like assemble it all?
Um, so there, for this printer, there's an upgrade you can get called like a multi-material upgrade,
Okay.
and you can see like this one has like spots for two different filaments,
Mm-hmm.
but only one hole on the top. So like if I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to, I could get to a certain spot and then pause and then like say uh, like back up the filament, switch to a different one, and then start it again. Um,
Ah,
and so like you could think that we're like kind of two different materials or two different colors at least,
okay.
but not very well. The multi-material upgrade you can print with up to 5 different materials at the same time.
Okay.
Um, so, but that would be more things like imagine being able to print the fins and the rocket part, and then like the top rocket part in different colors without having to like
Gotcha.
manually intervene. It's part of
Gotcha.
the code. So like that's okay. It's not super interesting, but there are lots of different materials like metal filaments or like metal embedded filaments or wood embedded filaments. But because the print settings are different, I'm not sure if like it would figure out how to do all of the different settings, like different temperatures and whatnot, automatically,
Okay.
or you kind of have to stick to one material for the whole thing.
I guess what are you gonna buy? So you only have the gray filament right now. Oh, it's curving
Yeah.
upwards. What are you gonna buy next?
Um, I think it'll probably be different colors of the same type.
Okay.
I don't think I need to complicate my life by learning the ins and outs of new materials because my time is limited.
Right.
I might get one of those just to see if it works off the bat,
Okay.
and then just try it once it's like while they're out, but without like a fume hood or something. Um, other than that, it just might be like some more colors. And since the point is more of like the existence of certain objects of certain shapes, the color
Uh-huh.
doesn't matter as much.
Right
So
for
I don't
you.
need to go to town. Yeah. For me, it would be more about how quickly can I go from I have a need to I have a part in my hand, and that
Gotcha.
includes the stages of like, do I need to tinker to get the thing to print? Do I have the materials I have need on hand? How quickly can I design it? Do I need to reprint? Uh, can I print it while Isaac is home? Like the
Right.
Fumi stuff is kind of out, and like those are more of the things that I think about, and those are more process or buying
Okay.
more parts. Um, so my short term is like, how do I get better at those things? Which means just doing a lot more printing.
Right.
And what it is doesn't really matter. It's just kind of getting experience. Um,
Like, how long is this role gonna last? It seems pretty big.
so far, you've seen most of what I've printed. I've also printed like 2 Da Vinci boats. I'm gonna go
Mhm.
grab those in a second, I think, so you can see them. And I have, oops, I'm not. Okay, this one. Uh, so the filament is coming across. You see it's how
Mhm.
it's all the way on the right side.
Uh-huh.
It started over here. So I have gone one row of the filament to
Okay.
print that rocket, the other rocket, the dogs, the boats, the failed boats, and then some like calibration stuff.
Oh wow, everything
And
basically.
yeah, and you can see that there's probably like 10 layers deep on that
Hmm.
roll. So
And that's
maybe
probably
a
not that expensive.
$30. It's like 14 to $30 per roll of filament.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go grab the. Oh, maybe not.
Go for it.
Okay, I'll be right back. For this is another failed print.
Let me just let the
Imagine
camera
on,
focus a
imagine
second.
on, imagine if this was like the bottom half of something that looked like Marvin the Martian almost, like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
basically
yeah.
printed legs. So
Or like
this is
the robot from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
yeah. So this is most of Benchi the boat. It's supposed to have a little bit taller here and then a little smokestack. That didn't come out. But this is what the boat is supposed to look like. You can see like I've had failures at like different places along the build.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can see that. And that's like such a cartoony, like I can see like 1940s Mickey Mouse boat.
Yeah. But what's pretty crazy is that
There's a lot of detail in there.
yeah, they sail in the exact same place.
Oh wow, yeah.
And I'm not entirely sure why.
The bridge, right? The arch.
Yeah. Like I don't think there's a reason for that to happen. My only guess is that like when it was trying to build up to here, like
Mm-hmm.
thermal cooling on this side made it like this part kind of warp up, and then when
Uh-huh.
the nozzle was coming across, it caught the edge of this and then
Oh,
popped it off.
oh, I see. Yeah, that
That's
that
that's that's my only guess as of right now. I think that says Benji.
yeah, it's barely legible on the camera. I can see the text underneath though, for sure. Yeah, yeah, CP3D. .xyz.
But these are like the most complicated and sensitive thing that's
Okay.
been printed. They were technically not successful. Um, so yeah, just like trying to get that as the rite of passage printed, printing more things and getting a feeling, getting faster at designing things for myself.
So I guess
Yeah.
that's a question I wanted to ask you as well. Like, you need associated skills in 3D design. Like, how are you picking those up?
Um, I I did a fair amount of Google SketchUp for fun,
Okay.
um, and like that was super fun. So like as far as using simple shapes to do stuff, like I have a little bit of that,
Okay.
but mostly nothing. So basically, I landed at this website as being one of the places that had like free online interfaces for um, modeling that allows you to download for 3D printers.
This is just Autodesk
Yeah.
made it free for everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice of them. I wonder if you can print Lego.
Um, I think that Lego is really quick to take like DMCA anything that says Lego on it.
Oh, I see.
I found two lists that listed like top things to 3D print, and both of them had Lego, and then it was a 404 on those links. But it's definitely one of the things that I would like to print, like being able to 3D print a Lego that does like allows a legal Lego build,
Yeah.
like things that invert the Lego orientation, or things that like allow you to put in like mounts to other things, like
Mhm.
build a Lego trailer and then have it 3D print a piece that snaps on, but then just has a loop that you can like hook onto one of Isaac's trucks or something, and you can tow his Lego around.
Oh, that sounds so cool. And also, like, you could mix Lego with like non-Lego stuff and like make it
Correct.
look even cooler.
So
Like,
this
I'm
is
thinking like 3D print stuff to put on top of existing Lego sets even.
yeah, that is along the lines. So this
That
is that dog.
that looks really nice. He even colored it.
So like
Oh
if you were
man,
to
you
look
got
at
fingers and everything? That looks so what?
yeah, I feel like when you I do this, you're like, oh, it's just three weird shapes, like a back shape and a middle shape, and then like when you put them together, you're like, oh yeah, that kind of looks like a foot.
It does.
Uh, but like the challenge is trying to get organic shapes in this. So like his rear is this really funky shape, and
Okay.
that was just from me like taking different like hemicircles and like moving them slightly and then merging them. So
Okay,
like if
okay.
we take one of these, like this is one of my oh yeah, this is like flat pancake looking thing. Let me get over there.
Mm-hmm.
This is like one of the key shapes I had to make. What is this?
This one?
Yeah. Like this is like much of his body is this shape squished into different like dimensions. Like his ears are squished one of those. The rest side of his body is like squished one of those.
Oh,
His
what?
paws squished one of those. So I just needed something that had like soft rounded edges that looked somewhat organic. If we start taking this apart,
Okay.
like there's one of the shape in there. I guess it's just two of those.
I think I kind of get the principle. Like basically you take
Yeah.
very simple shapes, build up slightly complicated shapes, and then use those shapes to build up the actual final thing.
Yeah. And what I have done is I've watched a lot of videos on how people are doing this to try and get organic shapes.
I
And
see.
like found people who were making out of just like boxes, cylinders, squares, things like that, like legitimate organic things of lobsters.
I see.
And it would, and like they would be doing it because it's like half of it is how do you make a piece that's the shape you need it to by adding other pieces, and the other
Hmm.
half is how do you take those pieces and then subtract off shapes to make say like hollow portions or like rounded portions and like the negative or something. And so it's a lot of like positive plus negative space manipulation.
Actually, I think you made a really good point. Like whenever I think about sculpting, I think the thing that most people don't really know how to do well is to take away.
Yep, it's not something people usually do in their day-to-day life.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Like
And
when you put your clothes away in the dresser, you're adding material.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
Hello, Rocket.
Wow, I can't believe that was so quick, actually. Is it warm?
Nope, been hanging out for quite a while now.
How do you know you're not gonna like? How do you make sure it breaks off? Like, you use scissors or like a hobby knife? Oh, there we go. That's so cool. That thing just exists now.
Yep, and this goes in my spare parts.
Oh,
But
what do you just send that to like some recycling thingy, or like is it recyclable? Can you get that back as filament?
I'm collecting it to find out later. Um, worst case scenario, I'll melt it myself into a ball so that it's not a bunch of like microplastic pieces and it's just one
Yeah, yeah,
macro piece of plastic. But I
yeah.
have seen like videos where people are recycling their own filament. So you can 3D print parts and build an extruder that allows you to melt and reform filament out of your own filament.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So like a sense of strength, like filament, like this little tiny thin thing.
Yeah.
You're not gonna be able to see this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty strong plastic.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why they said it's difficult to post process and everything. Like, it's really hard plastic.
Yeah. Like this is me squeezing the top of this.
Wow, that's actually
Ow.
surprisingly.
59 minutes.
Yeah, what didn't come up? What do you think?
Um, the like the part that I wish I could talk about that I didn't realize I wouldn't be able to is like really expressing the pride and the frustration I felt while assembling this.
Why
Like the
not? Why
complete.
can't you talk about
I realized that I can't express it in the manner that like I felt. Uh,
that?
the let's see, there's two parts. I guess one is like the pride of like slowly putting it together and like having it come together like over several nights worth
Oh,
of
can you
building.
swap the camera so I can see you?
Oh yeah,
Perfect.
there. Um, like the pride of building it piece by piece and like having like trying to turn a part that either is going to be too tight and get stuck or will spin freely and like having it spin freely and being like yes. And like the frustration and difficulty of doing it is hard to express. It felt very like um, experiential, like you just had to be there kind of thing. I
I
don't
think
feel
I can.
like I don't know. It's maybe it does come through, but I'm just like that was crazy. It was crazy fun.
I think it
Um,
comes through 10 to 15, 20%, right? Which is as much as it generally comes through for anybody who hasn't personally experienced it. But I can share a small story of something that I did in the last, let's say, 6 months that felt similar, which was I have been looking for bidets for a while, like for a really, really long while. And I finally got like a really fancy one. And I had to take off the toilet seat and install that into the tub. I don't know any plumbing. I don't know anything to do with anything. And one of the things they said was when you're tightening the plastic nut that goes into the tub, the reservoir, if you even turn it once too tightly, it can break and you can have flooding and then everything is like, and then you're gonna have to call in the plumber and everything. So when I was tightening that, I tightened it really tight, but it was still leaking. Like just little drops were coming out. So I had to like, okay, let me feel it, let me see how it feels, and then I just kind of tightened it. And I was working on a like with a clock because I was trying to do this before I went to work. So as I had left for work, I had like 1 hour free. So I was like, oh, it says on the box 30 minutes installation. It took me exactly 1 hour. And also figuring out how to take off the previous seat was a whole disaster. It's like it was just bolted in with like these plastic bolts, and I didn't want to break them. So I think that was like a 5% feeling of your like 15 hours of effort.
yeah, it's funny that like yeah, it's the same exact stuff, and it's always like you can only really experience it by comparing it to when you've had that same feeling. I guess that's like how everyone experiences everything in any story they ever hear.
And also, I think this story is right now midway done. Like, this is a story in progress, basically. Like, I would want to talk to you again in, I don't know, 6 months and be like, okay, 3D printing part two. Like,
Yeah,
now, because this story is much more about how do you select it, right? Like, there's a price point from $200 all the way to like multi $10,000 something like industrial printers and such that can probably even do metal and stuff now.
yeah,
And then how much time do you want to put in to actually build it? How much do you trust? A Chinese company was like this versus this dude in Prague. You said I don't know.
yeah. I keep saying some dude because it's his name on everything, but like they have a full size company. It's like the equivalent of uh, I don't know.
Like I read it, like 100 more, not more than
Oh,
100
like
employees.
do you have like a Roku or anything?
Oh yes, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So like that kind of size. It's like they have a legitimate project, they have legitimate support. There are lots of people, but
Okay.
like it's kind of like a more nuanced like thing. Like it's just a smaller company.
Cool. Any parting thoughts, Michael?
Is that it? I'm very curious about what your project is, but I'm not gonna ask.
No, I'm gonna start uploading video. I mean, the audio recordings that I'm doing on YouTube fairly soon. This is conversation number 4. So you'll probably see an edited version on YouTube in less than a month.
Why?
I'm just bored, I guess. I don't know. I'm really
Okay.
interested in doing. I think this is why. I'll give you an actual reason for why. I think one of the things that I'm really passionate about is talking to people and learning about the stuff that they're interested in, right? I do that in regular life anyway. Like I have a ton of conversations where I'm interested and I just want to know stuff. Um, I was like, why not just actually record those? Put try to learn some other skills like some graphic design, some audio editing, um, and maybe if I get good enough at this thing, I can talk to more and more interesting people as a result of it. I think that's if you tell me like, Pasim, do you want to do this because you want to have a big podcast and have a bunch of money? No. You want to do this because you think you're entertaining? No. It's more that I want to talk to people about their interesting hobbies.
I figured that it was something along the lines of how do I practice like the most active form of listening possible?
I
I'm
think
like,
it's that. I think it's 50% that and 50% I need an excuse to have interesting conversations with people. Yeah. I hope it was fun for you. It was
oh
definitely
yeah,
fun for me. Oh, great, great, awesome.
being able to talk about micro passions or like a major micro passion for the time being. Yeah, hell yeah.
And knowing you, I know you're gonna be a return guest. Like you have enough hobbies that we're gonna talk about something else at some point too.
Yeah. I okay. Until you said that, I was going to share what my second possible topic was going to be, but I won't.
Oh yeah, no, let's keep it a secret for next time.
All right. Well, this was really fun.
Thank you so much, Michael. I hope you have a good rest of your day. I hope Isaac has a good rest of the day too. He's gonna have a hella fun in the next few weeks with all of the toys and stuff like that. And just say my good luck to Ongdi. I hope she stays safe and healthy.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. See ya.
All right. You guys stay safe too.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you so much. Bye.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.